Hi, this is actress Kate Watson, and you are listening to The Movie Raid.
It's time for the movie raid. Tonight's victim is actress Kate Watson. Is currently doing the film Bridge of the Doomed. Hello.
Hello there.
How have we been doing? So, can you tell us a little bit about your involvement with this film as well as your character in terms of the story?
I would be happy to. So, Bridge of the Doomed, created by the Mahal Empire. This film is unlike anything that I've ever done. It's truly exciting. I would call it a horror action film. I play Sergeant Hernandez, a sergeant in the U.S. Army. This takes place in a post-apocalyptic world, which unfortunately there has been an outbreak that has created zombies. So she and her team are tasked with holding a bridge in a very important location, basically keeping this bridge intact as much as they can and warding off this horde of zombies. However, they seem to find out that there is something that is very threatening and menacing underneath the bridge at the same time.
When can we expect this? I heard that this is just finished wrapping up. Is this going to be...
We just finished filming on Friday, actually, last week. So, you know what? Fingers crossed. I know that our amazing director, cinematographer, is working to get this first edit complete. So I can hopefully say that it'll be maybe kind of completed in 6 months or so. Maybe sooner, maybe a little later. It's always hard to say how much time is needed in post, but I know that they really want to get this out there as soon as possible.
When you approach this movie, how did you actually feel initiated with? I mean, of course, it sounds really fun, but as an actor, do you think this is something that is going to help you out in the long run, or do you think this is something to do for fun, to get away from other things that you're used to do?
Well, I wish I could say everything I do is just for fun. No, I mean, I think that first of all, when this script came to me, it's unlike anything I've ever read. And I can say that as a woman, these types of roles are few and far between, and hopefully in the day and age that we are living in, that we can see more roles like this, especially for women. I do play the lead of this film, and it's a strong role for a woman, being a sergeant in the military and going toe-to-toe with things that men usually would be tasked with in a film. I took this role very seriously because I felt a duty to women who are in uniform, and actually anyone who's in uniform, to represent them respectfully and as poignantly as I can. So as far as preparation for this role, I mean, this was my heart and sweat and soul for about 6 weeks. Not only am I I'm an actor who I take every role very physically on, I knew that I needed to kind of get my physicality to a place that could represent this woman, this Sergeant Hernandez. So I spent hours in the gym lifting and putting on some muscle. And then I also did a ton of research because I wasn't familiar with the rankings of the U.S. military, with how sergeants became sergeants, with how women were perceived in the military, what their mannerisms were like, what their personalities were like. And then I also went and did some tactical training. So I spent a day with Special Forces, about 7 hours worth of working with shooting rifles. I was not someone that was familiar with shooting before, and learning how to properly conduct myself physically with a rifle, and went through target practice and a shoot house. You know, I have to say that physically prepared for the role, it was also a mentally and emotional prepping activity to do. I was in this space, I was in Los Angeles and had to drive about 2 hours east to go to this mountain range for this tactical training. And it was in an area outside in the mountainside that had different places where people would shoot, basically. And so all day I was exposed to the sound of gunfire. I remember getting in my car and driving home the 2 hours after training for about 7 hours, and just the emotional turn inside of me was something that I wasn't expecting, and just feeling a little tiny bit of what someone would feel in training in that scenario where you hear constant gunfire and kind of in a place of battle. It really does affect you. And so that, along with all the physical training that I did with a very painful body for weeks, really was able to kind of help me start to create and mold this character of Sergeant Hernandez. So interesting how I think physicality and emotion are tied together. And I think, in a way, you know, I spent the early parts of my life as a dancer, and I think that for me as an actor, there's so much that can kind of come forth emotionally from putting the physicality first that you can draw from, and that physicality then informs the emotional part of the character. So especially in playing this role, you know, her physicality was the leader of how I would fulfill her emotionally. And so it kind of filled me up emotionally in order to find who she was.
Fear is becoming a big aspect in this film, too, along with your character. Fear is becoming more and more of a popular brand now, horror, fantasy type of genres. Do you think now that fear is actually becoming more of a novelty as far as presenting these films anymore? Some people are noticing the fact is they're not being as scared, and they're not getting into the moment anymore. They're just like, oh, well, that's cheap.
Well, I think that fear itself is so primal. I think we're a little, and I can only speak for myself, I'm actually not someone who hasn't done a lot of horror, and I'm certainly not somebody who watches a lot of horror. So it was actually incredibly insightful and exciting to be a part of a horror film for the first time. But I think that fear is primal, and I think that we have seen so many horror films kind of use, I guess, tactics that we become a little desensitized to, if that's what you mean. And I think that we see the same horror tropes played out over and over again, and that becomes a little bit stale. But I think that for this film in particular, what makes it very unique is that we've taken some of the same elements from a zombie film and kind of put them on their head a little bit, because it's not just your, run-of-the-mill zombie movie. There's not a lot of cheap shots used in this. It's actually something that is, at least for how I played the character, it's very complex. And there are a lot of different elements going on here. There are a lot of scares in it, and there's a lot of thriller involved with it. But, I think it's kind of a film for everybody, whether you're someone who loves horror and loves thrillers to someone who actually likes seeing more of like a character-based film and kind of like a war film or an army film. I think you'd find this film interesting. So, but fear is very primal, and I think to say that we're less caring of it, I think, or people are more interested in it more so now because there's a lot of films that are made around, horror. I think that it's always going to be within us. I think it's humanity to have this primal feeling of fearfulness when it comes to our demises as a population or things that we're facing, our own inner fears. There's a lot going on, especially with this movie, and you can take it at surface level, or you can kind of dig a little deeper and think about some of the developments that you can take out of this as well at the same time.
Performing in different various films, like independent films and so forth, do you think that going in these different emotions can actually perform a risk sometimes, or from ambitious to even doubtful as you progress through all these films and everything? Can you think it take a toll on a person's emotion internally, a personal level, so to speak?
I think as an actor, you work and strive to be as honest as you possibly can with any circumstance. But I think that some people hate this word, but I actually embrace it. It's a craft, and understanding how to develop a character and embrace a character. You have to understand how you embrace the craft. And where do you find yourself able to be Kate as the person and Kate as the actress? And I think that there are certain mechanics that people use or actors can use that work for them. I think every actor is a little different on how they approach their acting and their character development. But I think that you have to be very honest with what is kind of safe and works for you and what doesn't. For me, I've always been someone who becomes very encompassed, and I embrace a character, and I want to know every single part of the character and do all of the research and figure out how I can best really represent honestly this character. But I also know that for me there's a very distinct line between what I do for a profession and what I do acting, and then who I am as a person. So I think like any art and whatever you do, to kind of understand what you have to do to still stay mentally healthy and agile and know that this is how you work with your craft, it's in a very safe way. I think that that's important. I think that everybody has their own means of expressing themselves through their craft, through acting. Kind of always, for the most part, being able to kind of differentiate what's my craft and how do I execute that, and then also still fill myself up as a human being, as a person outside of that, outside of being an actor, outside of my craft, and who I am at the end of the day. When I come home off set, what do I have to do?
And performing some various other films, and credibility is always there, of course. But do you think credibility can actually be used as a weapon for potential roles in the future, or do you think it's more about artists observing this?
I mean, I think that just like anybody's resume for any industry, right? People are going to look at your resume and your body of work and what you've done and go, great, I know that you've done action and I can plug you in this role. That's also action. And they're perhaps maybe a little hesitant if you haven't displayed the agility or ability to do something before. However, really good casting agent or really good producer, director will look at what you can embody as far as your emotional agility as a performer. Where can you go? How deep do you get? How honest is your performance? Because I think any actor can be kind of plugged into any single genre, any role, as long as they embody that sort of range, that sort of flexibility, that honesty and fluidity as an actor. Sometimes people have, certain, I would say, specialties, and so they continuously play some type of character. But, I can speak for myself only in saying that I have fortunately never really kind of fallen into a specific genre, and I've never been kind of typecast per se. Really, I go into every single project wanting to be challenged and wanting to explore different parts of myself that I have yet to explore, and to really kind of uncover different layers and different places that I have yet to go. But that all kind of encompasses itself within the range of who I am as an actor. So hopefully that director, that producer, or that casting director will go, you know what, that sort of depth we can now translate into this sort of character, even though it's a very different type of role. They know the kind of range that you have. I think that can be a really great asset if you're displaying that sort of range within your work, which is why I always, encourage actors to really take things that they have yet to explore within themselves, to not kind of pigeonhole themselves in safe type of characters that they've played many times again in different types of films, to really explore the range that they have.
Having the credibility, having to be through all these other films, there's also the social media aspect. Do you think an actor needs validation through social media to be a better actor? Do you think they need that validation as well, or do you think this is going to help them out in the long run either way?
I think we live in a day and age that we're connected to each other in all different types of ways. Social media is becoming an asset that I think more than people who are making casting decisions are able to understand who you are as an artist, as a person, and have kind of a direct link to you, which can be great and exciting because people get to see a different side of you directly. That being said, I would say I'm not so fantastic with social media. I kind of like the mystique of being someone who's got a life that's not fully in the public. And I think that, there's definitely an interest in a person who's got already a marketing base of millions of followers that can be plugged into a project that will then acquire all of those followers. So you're already kind of buying your audience in a sense. And there are certain projects that definitely want that. And that is a reality of what is happening right now in television and certain films, where they want to have these social media stars and plug them in so that they can have that audience as well. That being said, I'm a firm believer that no matter what your following is, that if you are that person that really embodies that role and you're a good fit for that, then that job is yours. It doesn't matter whether or not you have that following. But again, the people who are paying for that project to be made will make that decision based on what they think is best for the project. So I think it's an asset. It can be, but I certainly think that above anything, what you do as far as the craft of acting and who you are as an actor is far more important than putting hours into your social media and building your presence there. I would rather someone spend the time in developing who they are as an actor.
Do you want to plug in any websites or any projects that you're involved in that's recently been released that we can check out right now?
Yeah, right now, actually about 2 weeks ago, I had a Lifetime movie on called Psycho BFF. I was the mother, Renee, of a teenager who befriends a very troubled teenager in her new school. So that's on Hulu if you want to search for that. You can find me on social media, Instagram and Facebook at actress Kate Watson. And then also my website is actresskatewatson.com.
Well, there you have it, everybody. That is actress Kate Watson.
Thank you so much.